The Mavic 2 Pro and Mavic 2 Zoom has a built-in screen, making it easier and less hassle to get up and flying quickly. So let's take a closer look, but first a quick unboxing. So this new smart controller first leaked last year. There were some pictures that were floating around the internet, and it finally got announced at CES 2019 this year. It was added to the DJI website, but listed as out of stock. It first became available to European countries, then to Canada, and finally to the US. Now, at the time of filming this video, it's been listed as out of stock again. Apparently, they've all sold out of them, so it could be a while before they get more stock in. So let's go ahead and open it up, and then we will take a little closer look at some of the new features. There is the unit there. So we'll open this small box first. Inside we have a charging brick. We have a charging cable. And inside there we have some extra sticks for it. The main sticks are already attached inside, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. So we've got the unit here itself. Of course, we have our user guide. The protective wrapper off here. So I'm already getting fingerprints on it. That will not do. So there's a little foam piece here that needs to come off. That reveals the 5-way button. First initial impressions, it actually feels really nice in the hand. I wasn't quite sure. It kind of looked a little wider than the standard remote. The joysticks, to me, look to be a little wider. We'll check that here in a minute. But actually, it's not too heavy. It's not too light. It actually has a nice feel to it. So essentially, this has a built-in 5.5-inch screen. It's kind of similar to the existing Crystal Sky. It comes in at 1,000 nits, so that's quite a bit brighter than your average smartphone. That helps make a clearer picture on really bright days. So let's kind of go over the buttons and the controls here. Of course, we have our 2 joysticks there. I'll put them on in a minute. We have a pause button, return to home. Here's how we switch between our different modes. We've got our 5D button there, power. When we press the power, it shows us how much charge we have. You can see I got 2 bars there, so we will need to charge it up. Now this controller has 2 new buttons on it that the stock Mavic 2 controller doesn't have. First is a back button and a select button there on the side. Now at the top here, we have a camera button and a record button. We have our 2 scroll wheels. We have a USB-A, a micro SD card slot, and an HDMI port. The HDMI port is nice because it allows you to connect this to an external monitor. So if you're out in the field filming something and say you have a client with you and they kind of want to see what you're filming, instead of having them peer over your shoulder, you could plug that into an external monitor and they can see what you're filming. And you can change in the setting what appears on the external monitor. You can have it so it's exactly what you're seeing on the screen with all the controls and settings, or you can have that all shut off so they're just getting a video feed. So on the bottom here we have a USB-C port, we have our speakers and microphone, and we have these 2 kind of accessory ports here that's kind of threaded. Nobody really knows what they're for yet, but it could be for a couple things. There could be some accessories that DJI will be selling later on for it. Perhaps some kind of lanyard system that screws in there, or even an add-on battery pack. As you can see, the USB-C ports right there. Maybe there's a small battery pack that can be attached to it to extend the life of it. Who knows? And when we flip it over here, we have the antennas, and they flip up like that. And when you flip them up, it reveals your control sticks. So we'll go ahead and take them out. On the back here, we have the C1 and C2 button. Now, as you can see here, the sticks are a little bit different on how they connect. The original Mavic controller has a female end. The smart controller has a male end. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm not quite sure why they switched to that. And you'll notice that the antenna design is different. With the stock Mavic controller, you fold them up and you can angle them towards the aircraft. This one is folded down. You can still angle it towards the aircraft. If it's right above you, you would have it out like that. If it's off in the distance, you would point it down. Now let's just do a quick comparison here. First of all, for the joysticks, we'll just put them together. You can see that the smart remote, the sticks are a little farther apart, minimally, but they are a little farther apart. Now, just for a little bit of a comparison here, I've got the smart remote, and then I've got the stock remote with just a smartphone mounted in it. And you can kind of see, just so you can get an overall feel for the size. Now, let's just see what the weight difference is with the smart remote or the stock remote with the phone mounted in it. I've got an iPhone 8 mounted in there right now, so it'll be a little bit different depending on what kind of phone you use. So, smart remote, 695 grams. The stock remote with a phone mounted in it, 520 512 grams. So a little bit of difference there. Now that little bit of weight difference doesn't really equate to much. You don't really notice it when you're holding it. Now before we get too much farther here, there's a few things we need to do. First of all, we need to charge it up. I'm going to give it a full charge. Then we're going to have to power it on and update the firmware. We have to connect this to the internet, and there's a firmware update that we need to download. And then after that, we're going to bind it to the aircraft. We're going to fire it up and see some of the new features. Okay, so I've got everything charged up now. I went through the initial setup procedure. I kind of skipped that for this video. I'll maybe make a separate video going through the setup. It's pretty basic. When you turn it on for the first time, it asks you basically for your country. It wants you to set the date and time. It asks you to log in with your DJI account and update the firmware. Now, the next thing we have to do is bind it to the aircraft. I haven't done that yet, so we'll go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to just power on the remote. It's a double press